It's about crafting a compelling invite, right? So like make the value that really, really apparent in the invite, and then, story tell a little bit in the invitation itself. This is the idea that if you're gonna be audacious enough to be emailing people on the regular, you got to think about what's in it for them, right? I'm thinking about showing up for this, right? Like, so that's where it's got to come from. It's got to come from a place of service. And how you kind of just map this stuff out is go back to this idea of these like pillars of what helps people decide how to achieve the thing that they, hire you to do, right? Whether it's hiring you to, and I don't know everybody else's business model. When I started realizing that my stuff is working is because, like I said, right, I started thinking not just what's an interesting conversation for me to have, I'm testing every single week what's important. And then from understanding that, I create like a mind map in my head of just like, this is what's important to folks. Can I find people that have a compelling enough story to tell around this subject? And then you start inviting them, you reach out to those folks and be like, hey, I want to have this event. I want to talk to you about this so that you can promote your thing and that we can just really get to know it. But it's really going to be about like how you can do it on your own and really understand this and what the opportunity is and what the threat is. And that person is going to be pretty happy to take your call, right? Like, what are they thinking about and will they want to show up? Because if not, they're not going to make time to show up, right? So once you figure that piece out, it's about crafting a compelling invite, right? So like make the value that really, really apparent in the invite, and then, story tell a little bit in the invitation itself, right? Like Jerry is now a practitioner of this thing called the ABT. That's the and, but, therefore, where you can engage the limbic system in like storytelling. That is this, the and is like establish something that they believe and where the world that's happening right now and the world is headed, but you insert some conflict. Therefore, we're doing this, right? So like, you need marketing to grow sales and you're probably getting a bunch of ideas that you've heard before. But, what you really need to understand is that if you approach it with relationships first, then all the content that you make on the back end is a bonus. And then those bullet points are the things that you're showing up to find out about. It's obvious. That makes you want to opt in. That's how you get people to show up. If you don't have an email list, then what you're doing is promoting that stuff on your socials, saying you're about to have this conversation, see who'll sign up, put in the link on LinkedIn. If you are setting up events for LinkedIn for this thing that you're going to do, and you set it up under a company page, everybody that signs up, you're able to download their email, right? So that starts becoming your email list. And if you're sending them to a Zoom registration, everybody that's registering under Zoom starts becoming that list that you're building that is showing interest in this thing, right? So like I've been doing it myself for like 2 months. I now have a list of about 150 people that I get between like a 40 to 50% open rate on the emails that I send them because they've shown up to stuff that's proven that is valuable to me. And I'm inviting them to things that I think is interesting to them, right? So as you just start building this thing, that's how it starts to happen. And that's kind of like phase one. After that is figure out how to repurpose content on the back end in a really efficient way. It's all about like value, connections, and content, right? Like if you're showing up with value and people are like opting in because you're making it really, really valuable, then they show up to this call and you are purposefully involving them in the conversation, right? Like you not only get to show up and listen to Jerry, Jerry's building a relationship with all of y'all. I'm building a relationship with all of y'all. We're also driving this like relationship between each other. Jerry and I are building a relationship, and just make sure that you are catering to those vectors of a relationship.
I think it's interesting. So I want to talk about two pieces. The first one is I had a friend of mine text me earlier today who I haven't spoken to probably in 2 months, but I'm friends with and connected on LinkedIn and Facebook. And he said, I have a 3.5 hour drive to Tampa. Can you send me the link to your show? He's never been here before, but he's obviously seeing what we're doing. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that he knew I was doing that. Well, it was because we took what we were doing here and magnified it into multiple places where people are at. And then the second piece of that is people say, oh, they asked me about podcasts, and I correct them. This is not a podcast. This is an internet talk show. It gets repurposed as a podcast and released as a podcast. But the magic of this, and it's the piece that I don't want people to miss, is If you do this as a live show, you have a one-to-one, one-to-few, and one-to-many relationship that develops over time.